Right, so good morning, everybody. Not an STC webinar. Welcome. We're going to do something a little bit different today, very exciting, where we're going to have a bit of a panel discussion led by TotalControlPro. I'll let all the panelists introduce themselves in a moment. But just very briefly, as we're all aware, these are part of our series. So this is webinar number 16 that we're running today. We've got more webinars up on our website. We've got one coming in next week, which is all to do with the human element in a digital world, which we're doing with our partners, Digital Northampton, which should be a fascinating session. We also have another session coming up after that, which is all to do with risk assessments for COVID. You know, coming back into the workplace and things and making things safe for your employees. So that should be a valuable session as well. And then we've got another one planned on how to maximize your cash flow with VAT. So there's a lot of help as per usual to get businesses going again and help them as much as we can. So do check out all the webinars that we've got. You can watch any of the previous ones on YouTube. So do plug into that as well. And obviously continue to check out our website. Now the host, Dolores, we seem to have lost due to some technical issues. So while we wait for her to come back, I kind of just want to hand over to the different panel members so that they can introduce themselves. And then hopefully we'll either get Dolores back or we'll find some other way to lead the discussion. So over to you. Who would like to start?
Hello, I'm Marcus from Silverton Composites. Background is a proud member of the STC, have been since STC we've been going. How many years is it now, Pim? 3 years? 4 years?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, 3 years. Yeah, so we're not based on Silverton Park yet, but we're a composite manufacturer. So we produce high-end motorsport carbon fibre components for the F1 and automotive industry. And the reason why we've been brought into this is we're the manufacturer. So we've got to a stage now where our current processes can't handle the production through the shop floor. And now we need to digitalize everything moving on. And Total Control has been able to offer that support. And yeah, we're just going to cover some sort of hiccups and headaches that we've had trying implementing that software and things moving forwards. That's me.
Excellent. Niam, do you want to be?
Yeah. So hi there, so I'm Neve. I'm the Sales Marketing Director for IoT Horizon. We are an Internet of Things and digital transformation specialist. So I'm joined by Mark today as well, who's our Director of Professional Services, and he shall introduce himself shortly. We have offices based in Warrington and Salford, and then we also have remote workers in Nottingham and across Manchester. So we have expertise in the Internet of Things, digital transformation, IoT security, technology selection, it's rapid prototyping, electronics engineering. So it's basically how we take a client from an idea or challenge right through to that concept and making sure that they have the business case, the return on investment, and the product's actually going to work. So we've seen a massive shift in COVID in how businesses are actually adopting digital transformation. And it's so important to make sure that it's going to be adopted throughout the business and not just implemented by top management and then the people on the factory floor aren't actually using the technology. So I'll let Mark, if you want to pick up a little bit more. We've got our own professional services methodology for taking clients through that. So I'll let Mark pick up a little bit on that.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Neve. Yeah, Mark Sweeney. Apologies. I'll just quickly show my face so you realise I'm not a chatbot. This is me. I have very slow internet speed, so I tend to take off my video so you can hear my superb dulcet tones. Yeah, so I was brought into IoT Horizon to really help, help them with the how do we sell IoT, because the challenge is there's so much choice. It's not a technology thing. The technology is actually quite simple, but it's how do we choose the right stuff? And so we came up with an Empower process that allows customers to identify what the challenge is and then to be able to very quickly in an agile way to turn that into reality. So I've got 30 plus years of working in consulting and manufacturing, starting from the very, very early days where ERP used to be called MRP before it even became MRP2. So I've been around a bit. Sam, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mark. Hi, good morning. My name is Sam Tiara. I work for a company called MCS Control Systems. We've been in business since 1975. We serve pretty much all the industrial and utility sectors. We sort of consider ourselves a long-established industrial systems strategy to deliver automation projects. We connect multiple sort of machines and control systems to MES systems and up through to the ERP layer. I mean, the car industry is principally one of our strongest markets and has been for many, many years. I was brought into MCS Control Systems recently to head up their business development architect, and I'm bringing in the digital transformation practice, capabilities, methodologies to support UK manufacturing. And I guess from our perspective, you know, we see a lot of opportunities where there's a lot of untapped potential in manufacturing plants, and we're seeing that. We're delivering solutions, and just happy to share what we've done and can do to help you.
That's brilliant. Thanks, guys. Hi, it's Dolores from TotalControlPro. Thank you for managing. We were practicing perfectly, and then the minute we went live, I just dropped off. So much for digital information transfer. Very well. So quick assessment. Jasmine now has the presentation, so she's running it from the UK. I am currently out in France, so apologies for my poor connection. But thanks for the panel for introducing themselves, and thanks, Pim, for organising the through the cluster to have us come together today. So a little bit about myself, for those of you that don't know. We are a next generation MES. Our focus is around digital transformation and making it available, affordable and accessible for small to medium sized enterprises, so that we can bring the latest technologies together. And it's been absolutely brilliant to have our panel together as well, because I think the collaboration that we do both through the cluster and beyond that is absolutely key for us to really start to provide the best best practice in the sense of digital technologies that are available. What you should be looking at in front of you at the moment is some of the things that inspired us. We're part of the Digital Shoestring research cluster, which again was something we connected with through the STC. And this recent research came out, in fact, just before lockdown, on an assessment of manufacturers. And you can see up there, what you see is the key priorities and interests of manufacturers in digital transformation, with that real-time tracking of internal jobs, location and status right there at the top, integrated information systems between design and production operations, digitized work instructions, monitoring of lead time. You can see all of those there. So absolutely shows us that the appetite for digital transformation is huge. And I think the impact of the COVID lockdown is just that that's even more so. You know, people want to be able to see what's happening on the shop floor. They want to manage that process. They don't need to be down, you know, doing it right there and seeing it. They want to capture that data quickly and easily and be able to manage that in real time. So, you know, we know that that appetite is increasing, but what I wanted to look at through the questions today is how do we ensure that we deliver on that? You know, how do we ensure that we are giving manufacturers what they need in a way that has that not just become another fad or something we did once or something we tried and it didn't give us what we needed. So we had a great discussion with the panelists yesterday, and we realized, you know, we were all coming from the same perspective, you know, bring clarity, bring intelligence, not just more data, and also working in collaboration. So with TotalControlPro, we kind of see ourselves as the glue that holds a lot of the digital technologies together. And we are absolutely focused on production optimization. So as Marcus said, we started to work with Silverstone Composites to deliver our system into play, not just the MES and tracking system, which some of you may have heard me talk about before, but through lockdown, we've been able to integrate and accelerate our R&D process to bring in machine integration, where we're working with MCS to bring in better IoT and digital work instructions and information we work with IoT Horizons with. And then also inventory, resource management, and planning and scheduling. So having a system that really gives us that synchronization of systems to serve our clients. So that's where we're coming from. I think you've done the introductions, so thank you, Jasmine. You're working through really well. In the sense of some of the questions that I think we're going to have, we're also inside of the production optimization. It's what are the opportunities that can give us? You know, we have found that we've been working with companies like John Lewis Manufacturing, where part of that production optimization has been finding best practice from the team that are already working there. By providing a digital data collection, we've been able to identify the people that work really well, who are doing things best and practice, and put that across the rest of the system. You can also ask questions as you start to get sort of digital data, you know, are these products viable? You know, is the cost and the value add that we go through the production system, does that make this production viable from an economic as well as a maintenance perspective? You know, optimizing production flow, maintaining assets, finding your bottlenecks. These are all areas that digital information can really start to provide you with. I also like you know, when you're looking at optimization of planning, the fact is if you want to make 6 variations of the same product in one machine, and I'm sure this is something Marcus absolutely knows, the optimization of how to do that, there are more options than there are cells in the body. So, and yet we expect someone to sort of go, oh, I'm going to make it this way today, or I'm going to make it that way tomorrow. So my excitement as well is how we can start to introduce machine learning and AI to help make these decisions for us, and really start to provide that the level of productivity that helps us to keep competitive and to keep producing the best products we can for our customers. So I think we've got a couple of slides just to highlight each of our panel. I know you've done your introductions, so we'll probably go through these, and I know this slide deck is going to be shared out with all the participants as well, so you'll have all the contact information and the detail of what each of our panelists do. Marcus is very much our voice of the manufacturer, here to ask the questions and challenge us. And you have Sam, as I say, the detailed kind of integration of technology and machine assets and PLCs. And then Neve and Mark from IoT Horizons, who I really see as providing a little bit of innovation in sensor technology and how it can really start to open doors and opportunities for us. But I think we should get to our questions. So the first question was actually one we were going to ask from Mark. I've got a bit of delay, so I need to. So Mark, Sam, if you want to tackle this one first. The question was, what impact does the lack of real-time data from production machine lines or processes have on operational performance?
One of the things that we've actually found, and this has been, I guess, time tested on with many clients, knowing that a lot of machines have quite valuable data, you know, start, stop times, machine running, the product itself. But we've actually found quite a lot of control systems don't have the connectivity and therefore a lack of information to be shared with operators. We've had situations where operators themselves would have to lean on other people, build up their own sort of knowledge about the machine, but they don't actually get the data from the machine in itself. And that has created performance issues on throughput. We've had situations where, you know, identical production lines have worked at different speeds, and you know, without that data, you suffer from being able to get products through fast enough. And one of the things that we've realized that if you can connect a sensor to a machine at the lowest cost possible, and you can now with IoT sensors that were once only the remit of larger organizations like the Jaguars of the world, for instance. A lot of the SMEs now are seeing the opportunity of capturing that data. So we've been able to provide local operators, maintenance people, and up to sort of senior operational management and maintenance managers with all the same information in a slightly different context. And what that does, it drives not only the operator's behavior, but it allows KPIs to be measured by maintenance managers and operations managers. And that sort of unified connection has been probably the single largest leverage, if you like, of information that directly translates to faster throughput, higher quality, less downtime, and a smaller impact on safety incidents that quite often can happen on machines.
Brilliant.
Now, depending on the sort of machines that you have in your own premises, I think connectivity is the fundamental first step in getting a fully unified Industry 4.0 capability within an organization.
I know you talked yesterday about the challenges if we silo information, like just have the machine operating kind of, there's the machine information, but it's siloed and not connected to the rest of the organization. I think that's something we've definitely seen, you know, the importance of understanding the data that's coming from the machine in the context of what else is going on. You know, is it supposed to be on? Is it supposed to be working? What orders is it working on? Who's around it? And all of that contextual information or enrichment as well gives you that full visibility.
I think just on top of that, what I would say is based on the sort of, I mean, I've been in the industry 33 years, call it the third revolution in technology. The outcome of all of that, as we see it today, is lots of legacy systems that are either not connected or cannot be connected. And I think if we can start to address some of those challenges with IoT sensor technology, will make a significant improvement to the performance of manufacturing plants up and down the UK, from smaller companies to much larger organizations. The biggest, and I think that's becoming easily addressed now because the technology is becoming far cheaper. There's more technology providers in the market, and there's more points you can monitor. And personally, from my point of view, having an IoT layer coupled up to integrating all of that, feeding the MES systems, is a huge opportunity for UK manufacturing.
Indeed, and it provides a different perspective to the traditional, we have to have an MRP or an ERP solution that controls everything. And we're seeing customers that are reevaluating the way they do things. And that approach about taking us from a ground up, from a cell up, where you look at the IoT and you put it into an MES solution, which can deliver you results much more quickly than the time it takes to implement a traditional ERP solution.
And Mark, one of the things that you might have found, and we certainly have, it begins to empower the team. It begins to empower and inspire, operators to be able to sort of work with challenges quite often machines have given you in the past.
Oh, exactly. And what's really remarkable is that the first step is nowhere near as big as you think it's going to be. We did a digital transformation for a retailer manufacturer, and the first program that we identified was warehousing. And the reason for that was because the warehouse manager was he said, I've got too much information and not enough data. I've got too much data, not enough information for me to do my job. By the time I've understood what I've been given, it's too late. You know, the proverbial has already hit the fan, and I'm always being reactive. And so what we were able to do was just, the first stage of the transformation was just build a very simple traffic light dashboard, which allowed him to understand quickly what he needed to do. But then the next phase of that project was to put on a machine learning layer to basically predict for a golden hour, that then allowed him to be able to be proactive in terms of what staffing levels did he need, what was the demand, could he then reassign his warehouse operatives. So the first step is not as big as you think, and this is part of what we're trying to do is educate customers and show customers how they can make that first step.
Very good. I know, Marcus, you we're implementing the first stage of the MES in with you as well, and then looking at connecting up the sort of autoclave and your more automated elements. For you, what do you see that as offering you the opportunity for in the market?
Yeah, well, it's just streamlining those processes for us, because at the minute everything's all done manually. And it's very difficult to trace each of those aspects, but also learning how efficient we can be in those processes. And again, we can't do that manually. So to have a digitalization of that aspect will only streamline that process even more for us and allow us to understand where pockets of capacity are being missed, and take those opportunities. And again, because we haven't got that data in front of us, we don't know if we've got those pockets of capacity. So as a manufacturer, that's key to grow our business and be able to take on more business from potentially existing clients and new ones.
Very good, very good. And actually that probably takes us into the next question, which is like the main challenges faced when implementing an ERP solution or even MES solutions we're delivering for yourself. But Mark, as you started to talk about this, do you want to share a little bit about some of the challenges that that implementation can have, and how you can overcome them?
Sure. We're all familiar with the monolithic ERP solution. Whether we don't need to name names, but we know that it takes months, if not years, and it costs a lot of money. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And you seem to spend a lot of time and effort and commit a lot of resource. And what gets delivered is rarely what was promised or the benefits that were actually delivered. And so the challenge that a lot of companies are facing now is, well, okay, what do we do? And I've seen some organizations that have started off with an on-prem solution, and their belief is, well, if we just move it into the cloud, it'll cure all our problems. But actually, the big problem is it's the way that we tackle these projects. That we treat them as though they are these big things, instead of actually trying to eat the elephant in small chunks. And break it down into small doable pieces. And this, I think, is where we've actually benefited with the drive towards being agile. And what COVID has done is it's forced companies to actually reevaluate what they're doing, because they might not have the order book that they once had pre-COVID. They might not have the resourcing level that they once had. And the way that they used to do things, it may no longer be physically possible to do that. So in an environment where you have a lot of people together, then it becomes quite difficult to socially distance and do the job. So the main challenge is really, it comes down to one thing which I've found, which is consistent with ERP solutions, and that's culture. And that's being able to get people motivated to be able to buy into what's going on. Far too often, it's seen as a standalone project that's done in isolation to the business instead of including the business. I don't know if
so
that's
that
Marcus,
importance of engaging everybody.
The importance is engaging the right people at the right time. And so if you go too soon, you kind of tend to promise the world, and it gets interpreted like that. And so what we normally do is we only keep the real core people involved, which is too few. And what we found is, particularly using our Empower process, is we draw in the right people at the right time. So for example, when we're doing the initial possible phase, we might just be talking to maybe one or two people within the business. But then when we go into the workable phase, we then start bringing in some of the engineers, some of the shop floor guys, some of the guys in finance, some of the guys in marketing. And that allows us then to generate a much clearer picture of what's actually going on the shop floor, rather than this kind of theoretical viewpoint that usually happens when you do it in a traditional manner.
Very good. I know, Marcus, that's really important to you, the engagement of the whole shop floor, and to really sort of start to own the process. Do you want to share a little bit about sort of challenges faced, and how you're addressing those?
Yeah, so as you know, it's a daunting aspect for any sort of small to medium-sized business on digitalising their process. But when we first started the company, we made sure we'd implement some sort of process, and that is currently paper-based. But that's constantly evolved over the past 3 to 4 years. And now we're going into the digital change. Our motto here is that everybody's a part of the team. It just doesn't come from top level management. That we need the system, and that's what we want to do. Is that each process we want to sort of feed in gently, take steps as measures, but get feedback from our staff and all our team members to make sure that every process that we're going to turn digital is all benefiting all, not just the top. So that's been a big importance, and Total Control has made that sort of from the beginning, made our lives a lot easier because they've understood that we don't just want a piece of software that does everything for us because that's the best thing, is that we need it to be moldable around our staff, because those are the guys who are going to be using it, and they're also going to be getting us the results as a company moving forwards. So yeah, just that's the main focus, and I think as long as you put those measures in place, the software then will just mold and adapt to it, which is ideal.
Absolutely. I think, we've definitely found that having a champion, in that first phase, the digital champion who, and for the company to own it. I mean, part of our remit is to provide technology that is in the ownership and in the control of the people using it, not by the software developers. It's built by manufacturers for manufacturers, so that it delivers and can shift and adjust. And the implementation and integration with the larger machines as well. It's across the board essential that's in the control and ownership of the company implementing it. And there's a lot we can do, I think, ongoingly, and to provide support and help to do that. Aligning ourselves to be the sort of digital guidance or technology advisors to demonstrate the different solutions. And I think one of those things is the other ways that the IoT that you're implementing can help. We touched on this a little bit, how not to silo information. But I know, Niamh, you had some lots of interesting and exciting ways that you've been utilising sensors and different IoT technologies to support manufacturers. So do share.
Yeah, definitely. So if we start with the machine downtime. So in the UK, I'm not sure if you know this, but it's predicted there's 180 billion annually lost in machine downtime. So machines not working. So I was working with a manufacturer that actually, if a machine broke, they had a 2-week lead time for engineers to come from Spain. So at the moment, with COVID, if they didn't have a solution, how are those engineers going to have got to them? How would that machine have worked? So I think that's a massive area, and it completely affects that supply chain. So the end user, they are demanding better service, better products, better quality. And if you can't actually deliver that product or service because your machine's down, it's just something as simple as putting a sensor on a machine that can monitor temperature and vibration, and it's live at the moment. So we've got vibration sensors about the size of a lipstick, monitoring temperature and vibration. It's going up to a gateway and then straight into the cloud, and it's doing all the analytics there. So you can set those parameters. What is a normal operating status of your machine? And then if those deviate, you're going to get an email, an alert, you're going to get something in your dashboard to say, look, something's wrong, you need to fix it. And then you're taking it away from running your machine until it fails. You're actually putting in maintenance packages to get to that machine. So if something is wrong, you can get to it, you can fix it, you can do it outside of production time, as opposed to having those idle staff because the machine's broke. So I think that's one area that we've been looking at and helping our customers to actually start to look at the data. So a big challenge we've found is customers, like you said, they don't know where to start with digital transformation. So we would help them look at, well, what is that return on investment? What's the business case? So you've got X amount of downtime, it's going to cost you X amount of this. And then we'll help them to implement that solution. So it's just a very simple way for them to gather data and then see how they can actually implement that into other areas of the facility. So they might want to look at asset tracking. You might want to see how your product goes from a raw material to a finished good. You might want to attach RFID technologies, so labels and tags that can go onto a product, and you can see, well, what's the operating manual of that? What is the data sheet? How long was it going through that production? How was it tracked? How can I improve quality? And then it's things like being able to forecast. So you've got all of this data in your warehouse. You can forecast, how much raw material do I need? what sort of orders am I getting? Let me improve that customer experience. So there's even some absolutely fantastic apps at the moment where you can download an app and it's augmented reality. So I can see my production, I'm showing an engineer on the phone my production. We can both draw, we can both write, we can both edit. So instead of having to get engineers to site, you can do it completely remotely, and you can save all that data for use. There's things like smart glasses. So if somebody's on site and they don't know how to fix a machine, well, you can put a pair of glasses on and that engineer is going to be able to talk you step by step, and they can actually see where your eyes are moving. So there's some, you know, fantastic technologies out there at the moment, but I think it always comes back to what's the business case, what's the return on investment, what people do you have in that business, is there the right culture to actually be able to adopt it? Because if the people aren't there to adopt it, and I'll go back to Marcus's point of, Marcus is very good at, you know, getting everybody within his business to actually be involved in that digital transformation process. I worked with a customer that had implemented an RFID warehouse solution for exactly that, to be able to improve the speed of orders. And then the top management had just implemented it, and then nobody on the factory floor wanted to use it because they thought their jobs were at risk. So they thought if the technology worked, then they would be made redundant. So I think it's a balance between making sure that the business case is there, return on investment is there, and that you've got the right people within your business to actually implement it. But yeah, there's absolutely some quick wins with IoT.
Yeah, actually, Neve, that's a very good point. You know, one of the things that we realise that there's so much technology around. Sometimes it can be quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've done and continue to do is we've sort of worked with management of some of our clients to actually break down the, if you like, the entire quote to cash cycle time, and in that building up a roadmap to see how, you know, the business in itself, the people, the processes, right from the ERP, MES, right the way down to the production system, how would they be impacted by, you know, the right technology at the right point to help people move the process along?
Yeah.
And in that, we've been able to actually identify areas of low-hanging fruit, if you like, longer-term opportunity, and actually break down that sort of ROI into a meaningful plan for clients. And that in itself, because you don't want a big bang, you don't want technology coming at you straight off, because it can be overwhelming. And when you do it piece by piece, I think, Mark, you mentioned that point earlier. It's a bit like eating the elephant in one go. You know, try a bite at a time.
Yep. What we find is yes. Oh, indeed. And what we find is if you get the guys involved, there's two things. Firstly, they actually make some really valuable contributions. But secondly, by including the guys, then what you actually do is you make them aware of what's going on. They can shape what's going on. So what you're doing, the digital transformation, is no longer that kind of big scary thing that is going to threaten and take away my job, but it's actually something that's going to improve and make the company more viable and sustainable, and actually will protect my job. And I mean, everybody, you know, the way we work, how we work, it's all changing. It's never going to be the same as it was. And it's much better to be in control and being able to influence the way we want to work, compared to having it being forced upon us. Because certainly if you force something on somebody, you're guaranteed to get some resistance. Whereas if you include them, it's a completely different ballgame and different conversation altogether.
Yeah, and you know, to that point, Mark, I think one of the things that businesses could do is to begin to look at benchmarking themselves. You know, different technologies bring different benefits. Those technologies that are in similar sort of company sizes can quite often be quite insightful. You know, we've got a process that allows you to get all your team together and actually collectively sort of answer a number of questions, which in itself would accumulate a benchmarking number, which is your baseline. And from there, you can begin improving from that point and do a benchmark maybe further down the line to see what sort of impact it actually had on that business. And we've been able to get some great insights just using that tool. And that's a cloud-based tool. Anybody can actually use it. You know, you bring an operations guy, maintenance, manager, director, HR, production, bring them all in, answer those questions, and you have a baseline to start with.
Yeah, it's absolutely essential.
Realise,
we know the appetite for that is very high. I mean,
yeah.
you know, the benchmarking project and AI was the one that I got the Women in Innovation Award for, and across the organisations. I think it's fascinating. A lot of manufacturers will say, "Oh, but we do things this way. We're different. We're different." And we know, you know, from the implementation of our software, it is able to be customized to suit specific manufacturing requirements, but there are a lot more similarities than I think show up or that manufacturers really appreciate across different products and different processes, that we can definitely bring that data and share it. But do you think there's a level to which, you know, one of the things we came across is that some manufacturers were concerned about sharing to, you know, that the data is available. Do I share it? Does that impact my competitive, you know, being my competitive edge? You know, what level is useful for me and what isn't? And I think there is still a concern about having data available for other purposes other than just their own changes of process right now.
Actually, to that, Dolores, I'm going to just touch upon another area of being siloed. You know, quite often we see production machines being siloed, and so you don't get that data. But, you know, through this sort of collective benchmarking sort of activity, we've also realised that there's lots of knowledge in people that other people in the organisation don't know. And it's only when you bring them around the table and ask those questions in a sort of facilitated manner that you begin to realise that the production manager knows something that the maintenance manager doesn't know, and vice versa. And, you know, information that maybe even the management aren't fully aware of, that as a starting point, maybe facilitating a session to get everybody on board initially, can actually be an interesting first step just to begin the internal benchmarking, let alone any external benchmarking.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think we're definitely touching on the question 4. You know, I don't know, Marcus, you wanted to touch on this, how a manufacturer can implement change and the new technologies and some of the challenges faced. I think we've pretty much assessed that small steps, lots of feedback, lots of engagement with all the parties required, and helping that work. But was there anything else you wanted to share on that?
Just to touch on, as software suppliers, really that question will force more back to is asking you guys on the shop floor. I've noticed working for other companies when ERP systems have been implemented is that there's not a great deal of shop floor training to our members of staff. So even top level management don't go onto shop floor and teach them how to use it. And again, what we're doing as a company is we're doing one station at a time. So we've got, as you know, Dolores, we've got lots of processes at each stage. And what we're doing is we're starting at those points and we're training them ourselves. And we've got great deal of support from you guys. But as other systems and other manufacturers of digitalisation software packages doing the same thing, because that is the biggest thing. Where I remember the company they spent a lot of money on their software and it never got used, purely on the fact that nobody knew how to use it. And I think it's
actually quite an
hello. I lost you there.
Yeah, I lost Sam too.
But yeah, just
back?
Yes. I think so.
There you go.
You froze for a second.
Yeah, Marcus, actually, you know, you're talking about what you can do with folks on the shop floor. One of the things that, in fact, you know, as a business, although we sort of design and manufacture industrial automation systems, we're also a manufacturer. You know, we produce our own control panels, and we've got a two main manufacturing sector here. And one of the things that we're deploying is video-based training. So doing some training on a specific job and allowing that, if you like, that media to be ported via smart, the equivalent, I guess, of the smart pads, the iPads, to allow the operators and the production team to get on-the-spot training. So actually building up a bit of an e-learning capability that you can draw on. So when you actually even bring new people in, so you actually guide them through the training and get on the job training and quicker. And it's systematic, you know, it's robust.
And it's good, and it allows staff to get to refresh from time to time.
And that could be another area of
No,
I think that's
good.
an extension of this whole digital automation by bringing sort of informative educators.
If you guys, because we're aware that some guys are doing augmented reality. So what you do is you actually, you know, through a device like HoloLens, for example, you can actually see what's going on in front of you. But then there's a very simple schematic of what needs to go where. So, for example, if you've got if you're looking to train somebody, rather than giving them the kind of the offline or the kind of YouTube type learning, which may be a benefit, may not. If you actually are in the situation and you guide them through, then that actually is a lot quicker in order to get people productive. I did some estimates for a company, and it worked out the increase, because what you're doing is you're getting these guys up to productivity quickly, and the increased productivity will invariably pay for whatever investment it costs. And the beauty of it is once you've done it once, you can then, any new hire goes through the same process. So, you know, very quickly the cost, you know, amortizes to very little.
Yeah, very good.
I guess you're training the system, and then you're utilizing the system to provide more training as well. So
exactly.
I know, you know, we've sort of started to, you know, the digital work instructions, resource management, in the sense of you can allocate a skills matrix to your staff and how often they may need any retraining, or when they literally scan on to start doing you can say, right, you know, your 10,000 hours, you now need some retraining, or this process has shifted, please acknowledge you notice the changes. But they need to know how to use the system for the system to give them the feedback. So I think it's definitely an area that we can be more engaged and support with as well. So the last question, how can companies supplying digital systems keep ahead of competitors? I know, Marcus, this was your question, but I'm going to take it on. As all industries are slowly coming around to the idea of digital processing, there seems to be a lot of new companies popping up with, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we at TotalControlPro, we're a small company. You know, a year ago we were 7 people. We're now 15 people, so we are growing very fast. But for part of us, we are 50% research and development and 50%, you know, sales process. So it's always about what can we do next, what else is available, who else is out there. But we know as a company we cannot cover everything. You know, we have a very focused area, and that's this kind of synchronized manufacturing from people, product and process, and then connecting with those that have the expertise in the other areas, so that we can start to provide the best solution for our customers. You know, we heard a little bit earlier about the importance of agility. I think so there are new people coming out. We've just started working with a company that got an extraordinarily good system for managing work instructions, essentially, but making sure that the latest version is always there, that there's an audit trail against it, for digitising QA processes. We can provide the tracking and the context again, but there's this very specific kind of information and data available. So I think collaboration is absolutely key. And that's what we brought the panel together for, you know, so that we could bring that different technologies together. And I think we've also, as Pim explained at the beginning, working with clusters like Silverstone Technology Cluster, you know, with wider organisations, it keeps us knowing what's happening. It keeps us in touch with everything, because it's very hard sometimes. You're working in your business and you know what you're doing, and you've got to be focused, but you've also got to know how is the rest of the market, what else is going on. I think Pim said at the beginning, this is webinar number 16, so they've definitely done an awesome job at keeping us in touch with everything that's going on across the technology sort of cluster and the wider area. Because I want to open up to other questions as well. Neve, Marcus, Mark, anything else you want to add to that?
I would just, I completely agree. I would just say that it's what you say, industry 4 is so vast. You know, I talk about augmented reality, but that's not an area of our expertise. So it's the ability to collaborate, and then you've got somebody, so let's just focus on what is their challenge, how can we better it, and then collaborate. It's just, no one person can do everything. So I think that's obviously for a client, that's it, you know, a very scary prospect is, oh, I've got so much to do, but it's exactly like you say, get in touch with companies like ourselves and MCS and TC Pro, and the ability to look at clusters, and we'll all be happy to help point you in the right direction of how we can get you to the right resources for your needs.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Pim, did you want to ask if any, well, actually I can ask, can't I, because they can hear me. Are there any questions that any of the other participants would like to ask anyone in the panel? Are they muting, unmuting?
Dolores, I'll stop you, or Jasmine, actually, I'll stop the sharing so we can see people on the screen, perhaps. I mean, obviously, by all means, you know, wave your hand or raise your hand virtually, or raise your hand on the screen, or use the chat function, if you will, if there's any question. I mean, I thought this was really, really interesting, because one of the things, you know, I've been involved in implementing several ERP systems in my past in various businesses, and the thought of taking it on is already a really big thing, and it's very difficult to get your company's head around that, because, you know, it's so impactful, it's so wide-reaching, and it's quite a scary thing to do, and it can be incredibly expensive as well. And I think what's quite interesting, what came out today for me, is that, you know, there's clearly different ways of skinning that cat, and there's clearly different approaches where you can do, where, you know, you can kind of break it down in more, you know, sort of baby steps and build up to it quite slowly. And I think, you know, that's actually a very powerful sort of message that came out today, I think, because I think it will allow so much more companies to you know, find that confidence and build up to that. And I'm, you know, presumably that's kind of like more of a deliberate strategy of a number of your companies to enable people to do that. Because I've done it previously with, you know, a 200 employee type company, you know, massive turnover and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, to commit to doing that and then spending nearly 2 years in a team trying to set that up and do that and then get everybody's buy-in, you know, is a massive thing. And if you could do that in smaller steps and have a more gentle approach, if you like, to that, I think could be incredibly powerful. So hopefully that's what others have gotten out of it today as well. And just wondering if anybody on the panel has any particular views on how easy that is now, or not.
It's interesting that we, you know, obviously, you know, the impact of lockdown has been quite across the board for many companies. But one of the things we found is, because we decided that we were going to do online deployments, so we're going to do online training, online onboarding. We have done live scoping sessions. We definitely did that with Marcus, but we can now do those fully remotely as well, where we're taking people through their production process and what's going on, and as Sam referred to, sort of a digital benchmarking process as well. We were able to deploy the system. We had a company who were making surgical benches, so they had an increase in demand. They bought and deployed the system within 4 weeks to give them that basic tracking information. Now, it's not fully integrated with everything. There's layers that we're now, you know, adding on, but their very first requirement is they just had to manage that production and be able to scale quickly. So, you know, for us, I think that's sort of, you know, we were calling cloud and online deployment and stuff years ago and going, this is the way it's going to go. And what we found is actually that that has just that process has increased very much so over the last few months, and people are going, yes, okay, we don't need site visits, we do need to just get this done. So that's one area that we've seen a massive improvement.
We've also noticed, similar to you, Dolores, that we've seen a spike in interest and customers coming over to us about providing remote 24/7 support on their real-time control systems. So, you know, we've been able to connect into their PLC PLC-based control systems, CNC-based systems, actually provide a first-level set of diagnostics. And what that's done is it's given us closer interaction with our clients. We sometimes can provide insights into machine behavior and actually provide some corrective actions to allow them to, fix things that maybe they can't do so themselves. And we're seeing far more interest in connecting not only the top level, if you like, the business systems and being able to work remotely, but also to be able to diagnose faults remotely as well. I don't see that actually going away. I just see that as increasing, and even more so with the cloud.
I agree with that, Sam. It's very much that companies now recognise the importance of their data and also the value of their data. And as part of the Empower process, we identify new ways to generate revenue. So how can we generate a new line of revenue from the data that we've collected? And one of the popular ones is that insight service that provides insight into how your solutions and your cells are operating, and how can we tweak them to make them slightly more efficient? Because everything that you can save is actually, whether it's your electricity cost or your coolant costs or what have you, everything you can save, that's money that you're not having to spend.
You're right, and I think it was one of the questions that was put up there regards how do companies providing digital solutions stay ahead of the competition? Well, because we've seen changes in the market, or with more and more customers coming to us asking questions about support, it's actually exposed a business model that we can adapt to our business. So whereas before, we're going to man in a van, going over to a site to help fix a problem, we don't need to do that as much. It's there if you need it, but the whole capability of being able to do that online is something, let's say 2 years, we would have never considered. And that's actually pure customer feedback that's allowed us to be able to adapt our business, given us a business opportunity to then help our customers. So, and I think that evolution in understanding how business models will change, COVID's opened up, I think, a mindset globally that's going to change the way businesses work, with their suppliers.
Very much so. I suppose that's that supply chain as well, that, the available of the technology to have authenticity of the product, the supply chain visibility. I know, Neve, that's something you've been working on as well.
Somebody had an interrupt there.
Yeah.
I was, definitely something on the supply chain. I think, like I said, customers are demanding a better product and a better service. So I think come with that is they want to know who's made the product, what country has it been made in, is it authentic? So I think there's a statistic, and Mark will probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 25% of the alcohol sold is counterfeit.
Correct.
So how can you use that technology such as RFID and NFC and other technologies to actually say, right, this product is authentic? And I think customers are demanding that more now than ever, because they don't want that man in the middle attack. They don't want faulty products. I think RMD Derek had a conversation, and I think it was in other countries, obviously you have to buy your own saline, and a lot of that is counterfeit. So it's really important that manufacturers adopt these technologies so that they can prove that when the customer is demanding that they want, this, is it authentic? Where's it been made? It's not had any, labour. They want to know where that product has come from the raw material to them at home. So I think that's a massive area that we're going to see huge growth in.
Yeah. Of course, one of the questions that's just come up from Teresa is the importance in medtech for the robustness of the technology. It's interesting. Sam and I were both at the same meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about medtech and what was required, and we're talking about QA processes and how to digitize a QA process, because there's so much paperwork involved in just validating that what's being made has been made, etc. But we were with a company who are making a robot at the moment to carry the paperwork around the production floor for the QA process. Now that's the first step, so it is such an involved element to actually have the QA process to kind of fully digitize. The first thing is, let's just carry the paperwork better and make sure it's where it needs to be when it needs to be there. So all the test reports and everything else, and then we're working on what to do next with it. So
And I think
you can't always solve the whole problem immediately. You've got to take it in those small steps.
And I think it's sort of that automating of that process. So I'm working with a hospital at the moment, and they've got it's a very manual process of each ward has to record temperature, and they have to record the temperature in fridges, and they had a fridge break, and it cost them absolutely thousands of pounds to just get rid of all the medication. So it's simple things like the technology that we talked about for preventive maintenance in the machine downtime, that can be put onto the back of a fridge, and that's recording vibration and temperature. You know, if that fridge is going to break, you can get to it beforehand. The same thing, you can monitor the temperature. So instead of them, I think each nurse had to record the temperature once a day, and then that had to go back to pharmacy to be collated in a manual spreadsheet. So it's very simple things like that. Is where you have got manual processes, is there a simple way of actually automating that, making it more compliant, and then you've got that data to make better decisions.
Yeah. We have a company in South Africa that in their requirements now for all their workforces, they have to have their temperature taken 3 times a day. And because they had the system in place, we were able to set alerts running for each person to say, right, it's your temperature time, it's your temperature time. Also manage that so they went to the clinic and they weren't all kind of suddenly going to the clinic during the same break, etc. And it's, you know, it's little things, and little, you can solve, you know, additional problems inside making it better for the workforce as well. So interesting things. I see as well Denise talking about the Open University being a digital university, and I think one of the areas that I definitely see the challenge going forward is at the moment is the skills required to implement digital technologies inside the manufacturers. I think you know, we can have us providing the software on that side, but I think we need to be training from the ground up our students around the digital technologies, around what's possible. I know, you know, we get a lot of guys who've been background in gaming, and they come in and start to work for us, and they bring that understanding and knowledge. So, you know, taking gaming down onto the production floor, I think would be great to help people in the workplace. But it's absolutely essential that we work with universities and schools to ensure that the skills that are required and the understanding of what's being required, and also capture the new, you know, I think at Northampton College, Digital Northampton gave out an award for a VR set for one of their courses. And there were 42 people. Personally, I loved it because there was only one girl on that course, and she was the one who won. So stand for women in STEM. But it's capturing that excitement early and directing that into not just the technology from a software developer, but also into manufacturing, because I think there's an extraordinary opportunity for new jobs in manufacturing from those who have these sort of digital skills and can work across and help to provide that insight to the information. So very good. Thank you, everybody. Apologies again for my technical glitch at the beginning. It's been absolutely.
Have we just lost her again?
Yeah.
The word technical glitch, and then there's a technical glitch.
Splendid timing. Right, let me try and take over. I mean, obviously, thank you very much. I thought it was very interesting. Slightly different format to what we usually have, but really, really good. Thank you very much for Dolores and Jasmine for putting it on. Thank you very much to all the panelists for participating. I think that's been great.
No problem.
Well, obviously, we'll wrap it up here, but as per usual, what I'd quite like to do is run a brief poll for you all to not only let us know how you experience this webinar, but also give us a steer on what else you would like to hear about and what other topics we can offer you in the future. So that poll should be on your screen now. It'll take less than a minute to complete, so if you could all have a go at that, that'll be fantastic.
Is it biased if I put excellent?
Good. While all of that is happening, I'll say goodbye to our YouTube viewers. Thank you very much for viewing, and obviously check out some of the other webinars and go back to our website for future ones coming up, and we'll love to see you at a future one. So thanks for watching and goodbye.